Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, I am Miss DRF. I'm currently in NQT in the UK and I have a year 4 class and they are fantastic. So I realised that I hadn't really done like a chatty kind of video on my channel, so I thought now would be the perfect time to do one and reflect on my first half term as an NQT. It has been amazing. I've learned lots of different lessons and I just thought I wanted to share that with you here on the channel today. If you haven't already, please go and hit that subscribe button. It would really help me out, and go and watch any of my other previous videos that I have on the channel already. I will leave my social media links on the screen here so you can go and follow me over on Instagram or Twitter if you feel like doing that. So without further ado, let's actually get into reflecting on my first half term as an NQT. So I've got my phone here with me because I just made some notes about my first half term really. So if I keep looking down, that is why. But yeah, so we started back in September. The first 2 days were inset days, so that was a lot of like teams training that we had to do and just kind of sorting out the last little bits in the classroom. I had previously gone in to set up my classroom and I have the classroom set up vlogs on my channel. I'll try and link them in the cards above if I'm that smart to do that, or I will link them down below in the description. But yeah, so that was just kind of like finalising off last bits, like writing names on textbooks and things like that, and actually getting to know my TA. I did already know who my TA was. I'd met her before, but I'd never actually worked with her, so it was nice to kind of get to know her before I started to get to know the children. And what was really good was that she had been the children's TA the year before, so she had a good understanding of their needs and where they were at, which was fantastic. So yeah, in the first week, it was a short week. The children were only in, I think, for 2 days. So a lot of that was spent doing PSHE activities and getting to know each other, transitioning back into a new way of learning. Obviously with the pandemic, the classroom does look very different to what it would have done before. So yeah, there was no real formal planning as such. In terms of like, we didn't have to upload our planning to our server, like our Teams area. We just did what we thought the children needed, which was really, really good because each class had different needs and different things they needed to discuss because of the children not being in school for 6 months. So it was nice that the learning and the activities were tailored to each class's needs. So yeah, the first week was really, really good. Then by week 3, I think it was, so it was officially week 3, but the children had only really been in like 2 weeks really, because the first week they were only in for 2 days, so I kind of didn't class it as like a full week. But by week 3 we had gone into formal planning where we had to upload our planning onto Teams so that everybody could kind of see it. And at this point we were still working on a whole school text. So what we had done was we'd said that for literacy and like our foundation subjects, we wanted to link in all of the learning to a text. For Key Stage 2, it was The Tin Forest. A really lovely book, doesn't have any writing in or anything like that, so you can kind of go wherever you want with it. So we were doing our literacy based on that, and we did some art based on that text as well. We used this stuff for display work, so that was fantastic, and the children did really, really well with that, and I was really happy with them, with the stuff that they produced. But in terms of like maths, science, that was back into kind of normal lessons really, and just kind of getting my head around how those are meant to be taught. So we follow White Rose for our maths scheme. We do make some slight tweaks to it, but as a general we follow White Rose, and I'm hoping to do a video on how I teach maths using White Rose in the next couple of weeks or so. So it's just kind of refamiliarising myself with that. Last year on my placements I used White Rose, so I am familiar with it, I know how it works, but because obviously I hadn't really been in school for such a long period of time, I did have to familiarise myself with that and familiarise myself with our science scheme as well. Sorry, that's my laptop making that noise. But yeah, so familiarising myself with the marking scheme again as well. I did my training at the school that I'm currently working at. I was a schools direct trainee and I did it there. I was fortunate enough to gain a full-time position there after my training. But even still, I'd kind of like forgotten what the mark scheme was, so I had to familiarise myself with that as well. So that was probably one of the learning curves I did, because I was marking work and then I was thinking, oh my gosh, that isn't how we mark here. And that's something to bear in mind if you're a trainee. If you're a trainee now, you're probably in your first placement and you're just kind of getting to grips with the marking scheme there. But in your second placement, your marking scheme will be completely different generally, because mine was. So it's just remembering the differences between different mark schemes and things like that. My marking scheme is relatively easy. We can use whatever colour pen we want. I typically choose to use red, but I know other teachers in the school use green. And we put LO. If it's been met, it's 2 ticks. If it's been partially met, it's 1 tick. And if it hasn't been met, it's a dash or a dot. And then we leave a question task or a next step. So it's relatively simple. We don't always have to leave a question task or a next step depending on the work, but generally that's what we follow. So I just had to get my head around marking like that again, because obviously the last time I was really in school as a teacher, I was in my second placement. So it was very, very different. And at this point, it was kind of dawning on me that, oh my gosh, I am actually responsible for these children. Like, they are my responsibility. Their learning will happen through whatever I plan. And in my class, I have 32 children. So that's a lot of people in a classroom. And it just suddenly dawned on me that they're my responsibility. Like, I haven't got anybody to kind of... I'm not a trainee anymore. Like, there's nobody like ahead of me, if that makes sense. I am responsible for them. So yeah, that was something that I learnt. So our local council had decided that we needed some data for these children. As we didn't have any data from the summer term, we would definitely need some data as like a baseline way to start so that we can track progress, which was absolutely fine and completely understandable. So I was given the year 4 assessments to do for my class, obviously, and I did those with the children, and that was the easy part, getting the assessments done. But marking them, oh good lord, that takes forever. And then actually uploading the data onto Microsoft Excel was a whole different ballgame. In your training year, I can honestly say that you are not prepared for those sorts of things. You do not learn about those sorts of things. You just don't. You will learn them in your Nqt year. And that is something that I have learned, because whilst I know how to mark an assessment and that sort of thing, actually putting the information on a spreadsheet and Excel is something that you just don't do in your training year. And I think it's something that potentially should be looked at within training courses, because it is something that you're going to have to do throughout your teaching career. So yeah, I was fortunate enough that I have a lovely TA and she helped me to input a lot of the data. So that was fantastic, and I really couldn't have done it without her, because the amount of work that you have to do as a teacher generally day to day is an insane amount, and nobody really prepares you for that. There are a lot of admin jobs that aren't spoken about in your training year, and you wouldn't know until you actually have your own class that you have to do these things. So yeah, that was something that within the first few weeks I was like, oh, like, what is going on? How am I going to manage this? But luckily enough, I had a lovely TA that helped me through that very stressful period. But yeah, so we also had a book scrutiny kind of, I think it was like week 4, week 5 into the term. Obviously I've never been through a book scrutiny before. I've heard of book scrutinies. I used to be a HLTA, a TA. I know how schools generally work. I know that book scrutinies are a thing, but obviously I've never had my own books scrutinised because I've never had my own class. So that was an interesting process. It was just my head teacher, head of school, that did the book scrutiny this time. And the feedback I had was lovely. She was impressed with how I was following the marking scheme and how I'd implemented the new changes to our maths programme. So she was really, really happy with that. That was kind of an informal book scrutiny. And then at the end of the half term, I had a formal one with the heads of like each subject. So I had one with our English lead and one with our maths lead, and our maths lead actually happens to be my mentor, so I get on with him really well. And the feedback that I've had, sorry, that's my laptop again, the feedback that I've had back from both of them has been really good, so I'm really happy with that as well. So there have been some really dramatic events throughout the half term, one being that year 6 had to isolate. We had a positive case of COVID-19 and year 6 had to isolate. And although it wasn't my class, it was still very, very daunting because up until this point, I hadn't really experienced anybody who had COVID. Like, I hadn't known of anybody that had actually had COVID. So yeah, that was scary. That was really scary. The whole class, including the staff that were in that class, had to isolate and were off school. School seemed very quiet without those members of staff. But yeah, obviously it was for their health and for the safety of others as well. And it's totally understandable. So I get that. But yeah, they had to isolate. But it did bring up questions for me because there were siblings of the children in year 6 in my class. So that to me was like, well, do they then have to isolate? Does that mean my class has to isolate because they've got siblings in that class? But it's just a simple case of that class has to isolate and that's it. So yeah, my class, fingers crossed, at the moment hasn't had to isolate. We haven't had any positive cases, although we have had a parent in my class who has tested positive, but our children haven't tested positive. But as it stands, none of my children have had COVID-19 that we are aware of at the moment. So yeah, the other thing that I wanted to reflect on was parents' evening. So like I said before, I have been a TA and a HLTA in schools before, so I have participated in parents' evenings, but obviously again, due to the circumstances of this crazy year, parents' evening looked a little bit different to what I was used to. So parents' evening for us was across one evening after school, and I was at school until 7:15. I managed to contact all of my parents and speak to all of them, but yeah, 7:15 was the time that I left school. We did our parents' evening via the telephone because where my school is, we're in quite a deprived area and not everybody has access to ICT, a tablet, a phone, a laptop. Not everybody has those resources. So the telephone was the easiest option, and I got through to all of my parents, and I'm extremely happy about that. It was all very positive. So yeah, I can't say it could have gone any better because it did. It went really, really well. So yeah, I was happy with that as well. I had my formal observation in the last week of the half term. So funny story about that was that it had been planned to happen the week that year 6 went off to isolate. My mentor is maths lead and year 6 teacher. So obviously he had to go off and isolate as well. So my observation was to push back. which was absolutely fine. Then he came back and we'd planned to have it that kind of week that he came back, or was it the following week? I think it might have been the following week that he came back. But then his wife, who works in a hospital, had symptoms, so she had to wait for a test. Therefore, he had to be off to isolate as well, just in case. So it got pushed back again, and then finally I had my observation in the final week of half term. And I was observed in maths, and the feedback was lovely again. I felt proud of the lesson that I delivered. I followed the school structure that we use. I followed the scheme that we use. I differentiated really well. So yeah, I was really happy with the feedback that I had from that. So yeah, I can honestly say that so far my half term has been great. We have had staff meetings during the half term, obviously, and subject lead has come up. So as it stands as an NQT, I'm not expected to lead a subject, but come the summer term, they'll be looking to give me a subject that I could possibly lead. So my head has asked me to, think about that just kind of in advance of that kind of happening. And to be honest with you, I really don't know what subject I would lead, because I enjoy teaching all of the subjects. Obviously, there are subjects that I enjoy teaching more, but as it stands, I enjoy teaching all of them. I've always been really good at PE. I was on the gifted and talented list for the city for that subject. So I think potentially that might be something that I would want to look into, but I don't know. I enjoy RE, and given that my school is a Church of England school, that might be something that I want to look into as well. So yeah, there's quite a few options to look at. But one of the things that I found, and I still am finding quite challenging throughout my NQT year, is homework and reading. So usually we would physically give out homework, physically give the children reading books, but due to the current situation, we have stopped doing that and we use an online platform. For our homework, we are currently using Education City, and for our reading, our home reading, we use Rising Stars. Both of them are great websites and have lots of resources that can be used and sent out to the children. However, because of the school that I am in, and not all the children have access to ICT, it is hard for a lot of them to access the homework online or their reading book online. So I'm struggling with the kind of engagement of those tasks. Some children have not been able to access them, and I don't really know how to overcome that. They do reading in school, and they have a physical reading book in school, but that has to stay at school. So it's not like those children aren't getting the reading time, but I know that they could be getting more, and that's something as a teacher that I struggle with, is that I just want the best for them. I want to provide the best opportunities for them, and I feel like I'm not doing that at the moment with regards to reading, which brings me on to another subject that I feel like I could be doing better in the delivery of it, is guided reading. Now, pre-COVID, we would have different groups according to their ability, and we'd have different TAs come in to be able to work with those groups so that they were all getting good quality guided reading time, and the questioning was pitched to their level. Whereas now we've gone down like a whole class guided reading session, and first of all I struggle with the text, like what text do I choose that is appropriate for everybody, and then the questioning, like I have such a range of abilities in my group. I mean, I've got children that are working at year 1 level, and then some children that are working at greater depth for year 4 child. So it is really hard to pitch that, and I don't know if anybody else is having that problem with, particularly with guided reading. I'd be interested to know, so if you are, please leave a comment down below. Please tell me what you're doing if you feel like you've nailed it. But as it stands, I feel like that's something that I personally struggle with, because for me, I almost feel like I'm doing like a second comprehension lesson as opposed to a guided reading lesson. So yeah, I wonder how everybody else is kind of dealing with that. But yeah, I think another thing is that your training year will never ever prepare you for the kind of tired that you will feel during this first half term. I don't know whether that tiredness will increase across the next half term, but in autumn 1, by the end of it, I did feel tired. It was a long half term. It was 8 weeks, which is longer than obviously your usual half term, but you do feel tired. Like, I do bring work home with me pretty much every day. And I do work on the weekends. Do I have a healthy work-life balance? I don't know. I don't know if I've managed that yet. I do make time for myself. I do go to the gym. I had been going to netball again. And I do make time on the weekends to just do something that I enjoy doing. But I do bring a lot of homework home with me. For example, this weekend I know that I've got to mark my hot tasks. And I know that I've still got marking to do in the classroom when I go back on Monday morning. But I am starting to get into a better routine with things now, and I'm starting to feel less overwhelmed with everything. So yeah, if you feel that way as well, leave a comment down below. Tell me how you've overcome it. Tell me how you're feeling about it. I want to engage in conversation with you. So that would really be lovely. But in terms of trying to keep on top of my marking, I find it easier to live mark in maths. Find it's better if I'm AFLing all the time. For those of you that aren't sure what AFL means, it's assessment for learning. So I'm always on the go in maths. I'm always marking and correcting and ticking as I go along. I find it hard to do that in literacy because of the pace of the work that they're doing, but I am trying to get to grips with that as well. So yeah, I think that is everything in terms of my first half term as an NQT. All in all, I can honestly say I've had a great time. I have a lovely class of children. I don't really have any behavioural issues. I obviously have needs in there that I have to cater for, but in terms of behaviour, they're a very well behaved class and they're fantastic. They're a brilliant first class to have. And generally, I think my first half term as an NQT has gone really, really well. I'm looking forward to the next half term. I've already completed the first week of that half term and they've come back with good energy, good spirits, and yeah, they're just fantastic, and I couldn't ask for a better set of children. So yeah, love that for me. But yeah, hopefully I want to make a little series of these videos where I reflect on each half term, so hopefully there will be another one after autumn 2 as well. If you like the video, please go and give it a thumbs up. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please go and hit that subscribe button. It would really help me out. If you don't already, please go and follow me over on my social media links. I will leave them linked on the screen down below. And leave me any video suggestions that you would like to see over on this channel. I have obviously got a few video suggestions of my own, but I would love to know what you guys would want to see from me as I do make these videos for you as well. So yeah, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.